Hey, I'm Kevin, and just in time for the big game, I'm going to show you how I made this fantasy football trophy in the KevBotWorkshop. The fantasy football league I'm in with my friends has been going on for over a decade, and it was time for an upgrade in trophy so we can add more names to it. I wanted to make something that would last for a very long time so that we can keep adding names. I came up with this octagon display so that we can add up to 40 names on the trophy. Before we get started, let's talk about the materials I used. So the stock I'm going to be using for this project is actually leftovers from my coffee table build. What I have here, this is something like 10 quarter, while this is closer to 8 quarter. At this point, I'm ready to give these guys one more pass over the joiner and planer so that we can cut them down to size and start putting together the trophy. I wanted to use 10 quarter for the base and 8 quarter for the top and sides. This makes for a bulkier trophy, but it makes it strong. Once the stock is milled, I took it over to the miter saw and started cutting the pieces for the top and bottom. To cut the circles on this thick of a stock, I would use a bandsaw and a circle cutting jig, but I broke the blade on my bandsaw, so I'm making the circle templates on the table saw. To glue up the pieces, I need to add a couple more thin strips to make it wide enough. I then use some Titebond 2 to glue them up. While the glue is drying, I started working on the octagon sides. I tilted my table saw blade to 67.5 degrees. That makes all the angles on the sides 22.5 degrees. Each of the sides is 3 inches wide on the exterior. You could see here that I clamped a piece of plywood to my fence. I did this because after cutting the first side, the piece could potentially fall into the slot on the fence when making the second pass. After the angles were cut, I set up a stop on my crosscut sled to make repeat cuts at 8.5 inches. I also put painter's tape on the back to reduce tear out. Now it's time for the glue up. I thought about using circle clamps to clamp up the octagon, but I went with painter's tape as I thought it would give even pressure all the way around. While that dried, I started working on the circles for the base and the top. I traced the circles I cut before and used the miter saw to cut off as much waste as I could. I'm going to be using 2 flush trim bits to make these circles. To attach the templates, I covered the stock with painter's tape and then glued the template down using CA glue and activator. I first used a top bearing flush trim bit to ride along the template. After that, I can remove the template. The painter's tape held it on well and came apart easily with a couple hits from a hammer and chisel. Now we have a new reference for the flush trim bit to ride along. I then flipped it over and switched to a bottom bearing flush trim bit to do the rest. Some sandpaper will clean it up and remove any burn marks. Now that the glue is dried on the octagon, I fill any small gaps with glue and sawdust. There's one small knot that I filled with black epoxy. So I'm getting ready to attach these together. It's going to go something like this. And now I need to figure out how I'm going to do that. The problem is that I have a bunch of end grain here, and it's not going to be as strong attaching to edge grain. I was given an idea from somebody on the internet that I would take something like this, create an insert for like this. Now that's going to fit snugly when I put it in there, and I'll glue it in so that I can get some of this grain to this grain, and I'll even put some on the end grain as well just to make it stick really good. Some more sanding will clean up the excess glue. At this point, we are ready for the final glue up. The statue on top is a football player that I got from Hobby Lobby. This barely held on to the last trophy, so this time I drilled a bunch of holes in the bottom and used epoxy so that it had something to hold on to. I gave everything a sanding and knocked off the sharp edges with some 220 grit. For finish, I went with my favorite, General Finishes Armor Seal Semi-Gloss. After a few coats of finish, the trophy was ready for the plates. I had to bend the name around the base. I used an awl to make a mark and then drilled pilot holes for the screws. I also repeated this with all the past champions. 2014 champion, not to brag. Cutting half-inch painter's tape helped space out the names perfectly. So your fantasy football season is now over and you're either mourning your defeat like I am, or you took home the championship. Here's a trophy fit for a champion that everyone would want to take home. If you like this project, hit that like button and let me know what you think in the comment section down below. If you're new to this channel, hit that subscribe button so you can see more videos when they come out. You can also follow me on Instagram at KevBotWorkshop to see other photos and videos of projects in the works. That's it everybody, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time in the KevBotWorkshop.